2b, and like you always say, this is the place to be, right, Ralph? Or if you're not here, at least you're on the Zoom, you're learning Torah, which is beautiful of you, Ralph. Now, so we
Yeah.
got up to yesterday, Maishna, 3 lines from the top on 2b1 in the art scroll. Maishna hacha de tanishtayim shehin arba bifnim, be shehin arba b'chutz. We found that in Masechta Shabbat, we gave cases in the Mishnah that 2 cases that the guy on the inside violates the Torah on a Torah level, and 2 cases the guy on the inside violates the rabbinic fence if he does he does one part of the malacha of the act of the forbidden act of carrying from one domain to another domain, and we gave another 2 cases for the guy on the outside, and we gave for the guy on the inside. There's a total of 4 cases in the Mishnah. 2 that he violates the guy on the inside, the Balabait violates on a Torah level. 2 that he violates on a rabbinic level, and similarly 4 cases for the guy on the outside, the poor man who violate the Torah's prohibition of carrying from one domain to the other. 2 cases that are biblical, 2 cases that are rabbinic. So we gave a total of 4 cases for the guy on the inside, right, Adam? 4 cases for the guy on the outside. We discussed those cases. But yet, in the Mishnah Shavuot that we learned yesterday, it only gave a total of 4 cases. When it came to Shabbat, going from one domain to the other domain, the Mishnah Shavuot says there are 2 that are 4. That's it. It doesn't say 2 that are 4 for the guy inside, 2 for the guy on the outside. It just says 2 that are 4. There are 2 cases that are there are 2 cases there are 2 cases that would be, and it's another 2, right? That's what the Mishnah stated when it came to Shabbat. So when it came to Shabbat, in our tractate of Shabbat, it spoke about total of 8 cases, right? 4 for the guy inside, 4 for the guy outside. And when it came to Shabbat, when in Masechta Shavuot, it only spoke about 4 cases. It didn't speak about 8 cases. That is the Gemara's question. Is the question clear? Why are you limiting the number of cases regarding Shabbat? Why are you eliminating the 4 when the Mishnah, why are you changing the style that the Mishnah said in Masechta Shabbat? That is the question. So the Gemara says the following. Hacha, we are now in the tractate of Shabbat. The Ikka Shabbatu. This tractate, Adam, if you want to send to the group, if you can multitask, send to the group and listen at the same time, because I don't want to cause losing of Torah study. Here, it's the main subject of Shabbat, because here is the tractate of Shabbat. So since we're in the main subject of Shabbat, so we get into the details. We get into the Avot, we get into the Toldot, we get into the since this is the main tractate of Shabbat. So the Tana, the author of the Mishnah, talks about the Avot, the categories that are there are certain things called the Av. The Av is the dad. And then there are certain things that's called the Tolda, the child. So the dad is the one that was done outright in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, and the Tolda is some derivative that's very similar, but might not have been done there in the Mishkan, but it's a very similar act. It's working in the same the way the accomplishment that was done in the Mishkan of the act of work. It's the same accomplishment that's done if it's a derivative, something that's very similar to that Av. So if it's very similar to the Av, it would have the same laws of the. Let's say, for example, if let's say planting would be one of the laws of Shabbat. So watering, let's say, would be a derivative of planting. Watering watering the item. So that's so therefore, since we're talking of this, since this tractate, I'm going to get another Gemara. 1 second. So here, it makes more sense that we're going to go into much more detail over here in this in this tractate, and we're going to discuss more cases. But this is the place of the main subject of of Shabbat, right? This is the main case. This is the main situation. This is the tractate of Shabbat. So the tractate of Shabbat is where we're going to discuss more of the details of Shabbat. Let's say, for instance, like we said, watering the crop, morning Morris, would be a tolda, something that's very similar to the main thing that's forbidden. Well, let's say harvesting. Let's say harvesting, the normal way of let's say if you go ahead and you instead of using the normal a utensil to cut the grain, you went ahead and you used your hand. So that also is considered a type of act of harvesting, and that also would be prohibited to go ahead and do. So there are many things that are considered similar to the main category. So now, let's say, for example, let's say one of the malachot on Shabbat, you're not allowed to slaughter an animal on Shabbat, right? That's prohibited to slaughter an animal. What about if you go ahead and you make a wound in the animal, and so many say that wound in the animal, and to take blood out from the animal, that's called a tolda, a derivative. It's not the main malacha. It's not called the av. That's not in the Mishkan, the way they would slaughter the animals and use, let's say, for the skins, if they want the skins for the for the tabernacle, for the Mishkan. But something which would be very similar to that would be taking out blood, because the blood is the life of the animal. So if you go ahead, if you do an act intentionally to harm the animal, to take out, to make a wound in the animal to get out some blood. So according to many opinions, warning us that would be a derivative, called it a child. It's very similar to the act of slaughtering, and therefore that would also be chayav. So you have certain things that are considered the tolda, the derivative, and it will have the same law of the av. So we have, let's say, going from one domain to another domain, right? So here we have the case of going from private to public, which we said that's, let's say, the case of the Torah is the case of private to public. And also we have the case of going from public to private, right? We have two types of scenarios in our Mishnah, right? A guy is carrying an item from private property to public property. The simple case is the owner of the house hands off to the guy outside. He went from private to public. That is the chief. That's the av. That's the daddy violation. And then we have the child violation, which we call going from outside, from public to private. That would be the tolda. That would be the derivative. Now, the pasuk says Moshe Rabbeinu made an announcement. Men and women should not go ahead and bring any more items for the building of the Mishkan. They had an amazing appeal, right, Morris? They had a great appeal, and everybody brought stuff. Everybody brought gold and silver and copper and skins, whatever they needed, oil, whatever they needed for the building of the tabernacle. People brought. And the pasuk and the Gemara explains Moshe was sitting in the camp of the Levites, because he was a Levi, and which was public, because everybody would come to Moshe Rabbeinu to learn Torah from Moshe. And he told them that don't bring any more items from your tent, from your house. They were giving from everyone. They lived in tents back then, right? That was they lived in Sukkot. They had Sukkah, but the Sukkah was merely, they were huts, but they had tents. Don't bring from their tent, which is private property, to the camp of the Levium, which is public property. Ralph's area, everybody was in there by the camp of Moshe, and the Gemara says Moshe commanded that on Shabbat. Moshe was telling them that you're not allowed to carry from private to public. So because it's written openly in the Torah, that's called an av. That's called a daddy. That's called the chief. That's the main. That's called an av malacha. It's called the av, the source. Because it's the source, because that is av. The father is the source of children, right? So therefore, the act that was done in the Torah, where the Torah tells us don't do this, the Torah delineates the act. That's called the av. That's the dad. Now, bringing from public to private is not openly stated in the Torah. Okay? The case that's stated in the Torah is which case, Adam? From private to public. Good morning. From private to public, it's openly stated in the Torah. But the Gemara learns from logic. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the class. We're doing Masechet Shabbat. And we finish at 7:25. There's a 7:30 minyan upstairs. The Gemara learns that since something called svara, logic, right? Logic is also something that's a Torah idea. Meaning you could, if you could deduce something from logic, you understand the Torah does not have to mention everything. The Torah could give you something, it gives you an idea, it gives you a law, and then if the logic tells us another law, that's part of the way that that becomes Torah law. If it's proper, you have to have proper logic to know that your logic is proper. And the Gemara says, since we find in the Torah that you're not allowed to take an item, carry an item from private to public, morning, Mr. Haber, which means you're bringing something from one domain to another domain. Meaning it seems that the Torah is telling us we don't want the transfer of an item to leave this domain to go to that domain. Private domain to a public domain. It's not about the fact that this is, just because it's specifically because this is a private and that's public. It's that they're two different, not because that order, so to speak. It's because you are taking an item and bringing it to another, morning, Jack, to another place. It's a change of domain. So being that that's the case, the logic does not make it different. And now, it does talk about private to public. So the logic would say there shouldn't be a difference taking an item from private property to public property, or taking an item from public property to private property. You're affecting the same change. It just happens to be one's private to public, one's public to private. You are moving an item from one domain, from a private domain. Now, there are certain domains that are not private and not public, so maybe that the Torah is not, that might not be the case where the Torah would forbid. We're going to find that other places. Let's say you have something in the ocean. You have an item on the ocean. You want to take it from the ocean to the to the street. The ocean is not a private place and not a public place. It's it's an in-between place. It's not a place that everybody travels, that everybody goes, and therefore it's not we won't classify as a public place, and it won't classify as a private place. So therefore, taking something from the ocean to the street will not be a biblical prohibition of carrying, the rabbinic prohibition of carrying. But on the biblical level, on the Torah level, there's no room. The logic does not give us room to make a difference between carrying an item from private to public or public to private. So therefore it would be equally prohibited on a Torah level. It might not be, it has a different name. It won't be called an av, it won't be called the source, it will be called a tolda, a derivative of the av. Now that's the so therefore the Gemara says the following. Our Masechta, our tractate is the tractate of Shabbat. And the tractate of Shabbat, being that is the main tractate that will focus on the laws of Shabbat. So if you're focusing on the subject of Shabbat, you go into all different types of cases. You talk about the dad, the source, the av, you talk about the toldot, you talk about the derivatives, the things that are not openly in the pasuk. However, the Mishnah in Shavuot, where it did not delineate all the cases, it only spoke about 4 cases, not 8 cases of a hatam, but over there, the lavik is Shabbat. There, Masechta Shavuot is not focused on Shabbat, it's focused on oath. You know, if a person swears falsely and the different laws, if he swears about something that he's going to do in the future, if he swears about something that he did in the past, and he swore falsely, the different responsibilities and korbanot, offerings that he has to bring as atonement for those. Over there, when it's talking about oaths, and there it mentions Shabbat, because it says some similarity of Shabbat to oaths, it talks about there. We don't have. It's not going to focus in on all the cases of Shabbat, because that's not what it's not the subject on the table. It's not the main subject that we're focusing on. So therefore, it only talks about the av, the source, the things that are openly written in the Torah, cases that are openly written in the Torah, but not cases that are not written in the Torah. So therefore, the Gemara says, "Avot hatam delavik Shabbat avot tani tolodot lo tani." It was only interested in giving us cases that are biblical. God bless you. That is the av, which is the dad, but it's not interested in telling us about the cases that are tolodot, that are derivatives, that are not the original open source. Therefore, God bless you, it does not list as many cases, because that's not our focus, right? When you're focusing on Shabbat, you got to talk about more details. You're not focusing on Shabbat, you're focusing on oaths. So you mentioned Shabbat, you mentioned something in the Shabbat related to oaths, or in something similar to oaths. You don't delineate all the cases. Therefore, we did half the amount. We were 50% of what we did in Shabbat. We mentioned 8 cases in Shabbat, 2 that is 4 for the guy inside, 2 that's 4 for the guy outside. And when it comes to Shabbat in the tractate of Shavuot, we only mentioned 4 cases. So the Gemara shoots back. How can you explain it that way? How can you say that the tractate of Shavuot is only mentioning avot, the source cases, which is the cases that are written openly in the Torah? Avot manihu. What are the cases that's dad? Who's the dad? Who is the source? What are the source cases of the Torah? How many cases of the Torah would classify? Could you classify and label as the dad cases? The Gemara says Yitziot. What other av? The Yitziot going from private to public. That's the cases that are private to public are the cases that are the dad. But how many cases are there going from private to public? There's either the guy that will be obligated, violating the Torah law of carrying. There's the guy on the inside handing it to the guy on the outside, or there's the guy on the outside sticking his hand inside, taking it from the hand, taking it out of the hand of the guy inside and bringing it outside. Those are two cases of going from private to public. There's no four cases. So that's the Gemara's question. But if that's the case, how do you list it as four cases over there in the Tractate of Shavuot when there's only two cases? Am I clear? There's only two cases of going from private to public. That would be a violation of the Torah. So why is it? How does he list it as four cases? That's the Gemara's question. Avot manihu, one of the cases of avot of the dad of the source cases, yitziot, going from private to public. Yitziot trei havian. It's only two cases. So how do you list it as four cases? Because in the Tractate of Shavuot it says two that are four. You listed four cases. V'chi tema. And if you're going to answer me, you know what? When it says four cases in the Tractate of Shavuot, maybe it says two that are four. Maybe it means two that are biblically prohibited, going from private to public. The guy on the inside handing it to the guy outside. The guy outside taking from the guy inside and bringing it outside and putting it down. Maybe there are two cases that are biblically prohibited, and there's another two cases that are what? Rabbinically prohibited, right? We have cases going from inside to outside that can be rabbinically prohibited, right? If the guy on the inside takes an item and he sticks his hand outside, and the guy outside takes it from his hand, right? So that's the case that is rabbinically prohibited, because the guy on the inside didn't do both, the akira, the uprooting and the placing down. He did one part. He uprooted the item from the ground, picked it up, stuck his hand outside in public property, but he didn't put it down in public property. The other guy took it. So the other guy finished the other guy finished the act. So that would be rabbinically prohibited because you did part of the act. And if you do part of an act, we're afraid you might come to do the whole thing. Yes.
Rabbinically prohibited both sides?
Both sides. Each guy did it. Right, because both guys are involved in the act of this malacha. So maybe when we say two that are four cases in the Tractate of Shavuot, because there's two cases that are biblically prohibited, and maybe the other two cases are that we're going to have two other cases that are rabbanan on a rabbinic level that are prohibited when you're doing half the act. Let's say one case could be when the guy on the inside sticks his hand outside. He did, and the guy on the outside takes it from him. That would be a rabbinic prohibition. And another case of a rabbinic prohibition would be, if the guy on the outside, if the guy on the outside goes ahead and he sticks his hand inside, and he takes it from the guy on the inside, and he takes it from the guy inside, that would if the guy on the inside hands it, to the guy. The guy on the outside puts his hand inside. He doesn't take it himself. The other guy gives it to him. So if the other guy uprooted the item and the other guy just took it out, that would be a rabbinic case. Being that's the case, and maybe we're listing two cases that are biblically prohibited and two cases that are what? Rabbinically, because no person did the whole act. In order to violate Shabbat, the whole act is the uprooting of the item and placing down. You have to do both parts, the uprooting and the placing down. Yes, that's that.
So if the guy on the inside, all he does is sit there and just, let's say, doesn't physically give it to the guy, but just sits there. The other guy takes it. He's not doing anything with wrong, right?
So the guy on the inside, he doesn't
actually give it to the guy.
Right. So he's not right. He's not doing anything wrong from the aspect of the laws of Shabbat, because he didn't uproot it and he didn't put it down. But he might be doing something wrong by helping assist. It's from a separate area, assisting the guy doing a sin. That's what he's doing. Morning, Gary. So the Gemara says it can't be. That can't be the explanation of the case of the Gemara Shavuot. Just to bring Gary up to date, we are analyzing the Mishnah in Shabbat contrasting it with the Mishnah in Masechta Shavuot, where the Mishnah in Shavuot lists 50% less of the cases of violating the Shabbat through the act of carrying something, leaving one domain to the other. In Shabbat, we enlist 8 cases, and the Mishnah Shavuot lists only 4 cases. And the Gemara is trying to understand why the change. So the Gemara says, and the Gemara made a suggestion, and the Gemara said that maybe in the Masechta of Shavuot, we're talking about specifically cases relating to the source cases of going from private to public. And there are the 4 cases that we're referring to. There are 2 that are violating on a Torah level and 2 that are violating on a rabbinic level. 2 different types of cases. So the Gemara says that can't be. Why? If you look in the Mishnah Shavuot, the lineup, all the cases, and especially let's say the case that's right next to it, it's talking about cases that are violating on cases relating on a Torah level. We're not discussing rabbinic level. Being that it's not discussing rabbinic level, so therefore it's not discussing rabbinic level. Therefore, you can't say it's talking about rabbinic and Torah violations. It's only talking about Torah violations. And therefore, you can't say there's 2 cases that are biblical, 2 cases that are rabbinic, because the fact that it's surrounded, it's grouped together with items that are all about Torah issues, so this is also about Torah issues. It's interesting, I think the 10th commandment, you'll see where the Torah talks about kidnapping, right? Torah says, Torah says you're not allowed to steal, right? What is the word steal referring to in the 10th commandment? 10th commandment, you say you're not allowed to steal, it's referring to kidnapping, right? We say it's referring to kidnapping. And how do we know it's referring to kidnapping? Because the way it's surrounded, the Torah gave the 10 commandments. If you look what it's next to, and if you look in it's surrounded by items, by cases that would have the death penalty, right? Torah talks about lo tenaf. Torah talks about don't commit adultery. So since it's connected to items that have the death penalty, so the case that the Torah is talking about when it says lo signov, don't go ahead and let's take a look at the lashon of the pasuk. It says lo tenaf, don't commit adultery, and right after it says lo tignov. Now, what is it? You shall not steal. What does it mean? Don't steal. When the Torah says the 10 commandments, don't steal. So Rashi says it's talking about kidnapping. Because there's another pasuk in the Torah that's talking about stealing money. So Rashi says maybe the 10th commandment is also referring to about stealing money. So Rashi says that no, because just like lo tirtzach, when it talks about murder and talks about adultery, are items that are obligated death penalty. So too, when the Torah those are the items that surround the violation of lo tignov. Well, at least it's the 2 that are before lo tignov. Don't murder and don't commit adultery. Then it says don't kidnap. So just like those are referring to acts that carry the death penalty, so lo tignov is also referring to an act that carries a death penalty. If someone kidnaps somebody and sells them, that would be the death penalty. So therefore, we can know it's so dova halamed minyano. From the subject matter, the way you group things, you know what type of thing you're talking about. So too, the Gemara is saying over here, that happens to be on a pasuk. That's what the Gemara says in the Mishnah over there. The Tana is grouping items that are on a biblical level. All the things that we list there are talking about items. Let's say it talks about Negaim, talks about leprosy. It talks about there are 2 cases of the Torah that are open, 2 different types of cases that are open regarding leprosy. And there's another 2 cases that you can learn out from the pasuk. Also biblical cases, biblical colors, biblical shades of leprosy. So we see it's talking all about Torah cases. So therefore, when it talks about 2 cases that are of going from one domain to another that equal four, that are four, are also talking on a Torah level. That's what the Gemara says. All the cases are referring to on a biblical level. So too, if let's say if someone goes ahead and touches someone who is contaminated with the plague of leprosy, and after you do that, you enter the mikdash, and let's say you forgot that you didn't know that made you contaminated, and you entered the mikdash, you have to bring a korban, you have to bring an offering for atonement. So too, the cases about Shabbat are also talking about cases that if a guy violates the Shabbat unintentionally, he will also bring a korban chatat, a sin offering. So therefore, the only time you bring a sin offering by violating the Shabbat is only if you violate on a Torah level. If a guy violates a rabbinic law, you don't bring a sin offering. A guy does mukseh on Shabbat. I handle, he picks up his computer on Shabbat just like this. He doesn't bring a korban chatat. He doesn't bring a sin offering. So therefore, you can't say it's referring to cases at a rabbinic level. Ella Papa says a different Ella, when the Gemara says Ella, changing what we said before. Ella is like rather going a new derech, a new way, but take a new direction, a rerouting of the where we're headed on the GPS, right? Here we're with this. This is the tractate of Shabbat. So Tani Chiyuvei, we talk about things that are biblically prohibited on a Torah level, and Beture, things that are not biblically, no biblical violation or rabbinic violation. But in the tractate of Shavuot, which the focus is oath, and the Lav Ika Shabbatu, it's not the main case of Shabbat. What is it? It's a focus on oaths on Shavuot. Chiyuvei tani, turi lo tani. The Tana only focuses on things that are biblically prohibited, not rabbinic prohibition. And therefore, when it says two that are four, all the four cases are on a Torah level that are prohibited. In Shabbat, when we say two that are four, some are rabbinic and some are biblical. Because here Shabbat, we got to talk about everything. This is the source. You got to go into all the details. Over there, that's not the main focus of Shabbat. In Shavuot, by the oaths, we only talk about cases that are biblically prohibited. So the Gemara says, Shtayim, the Hotzah, now, Chiyuvi Maniu, what are the cases that are biblically prohibited? Yitziot, going from private to public. So the Gemara says, Tati Havan. There's only two cases going from private to public. The guy on the inside hands it to the guy on the outside, and the guy on the outside takes it out from the inside and brings it outside. So where do we have four cases? So the Gemara says, Shtayim dotzah, ushtayim dachnasa. There are two cases of going from inside to out, and there's another two cases of going from outside to in. The guy on the outside hands it to the guy inside, or the guy on the inside takes it out of the guy on the outside and brings it inside. So there's a total of four cases that are biblically prohibited. It's true. Two of them are the Av, two are the source that are written openly in the Torah, and there's another two that are derivative, the Tolda. But the Tolda, the derivative, it has the same biblical law as the Av. So therefore, there are four cases. The Gemara says, the Gemara says, the Mishnah Shavuot says going out. So how can you count going from public to private as going out? Going from inside out is going out. But going outside in is not called you went out, you went in. The Gemara says, Tana, Hachnasat Nami Hotzah Karilei. He also calls Hachnasa, when you go from outside in, if you, the guy, the poor man on the outside, give something to the guy on the inside, that also goes, it's called going out. Where did it go out? It went out from the public domain to the private domain. It's also called going out. The same way you could call going out, going from private to public, you could go from public, leaving the public to the inside. It also can be referred to as Yitziyah. And the Gemara is going to prove it. But we're going to stop now. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Have a great day, everybody. Ralph, thank you very much for joining.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great day.